Okay, if we can come together for next part.
Sometimes you have to find
What's that?
You need a whistle.
Whistle? Okay, any questions or thoughts from the discussions here, that informal discussions? Yes, yes, Paul.
It seems to me that Teilhard was I guess she was informed Ilio Milio, who was here with us last year. And you can sort of get that connection, the evolution, and I think Ilio pointed out how not only people were pointing out Teilhard's belief that it's ongoing and evolution is continuing, and we're a part of it. But she pointed out how the disciplines of science and of philosophy, we have, basically we need a new mindset. I think you said a new paradigm. And I think that's something for us all to come back to over and over again, because it's hard to change the story that you've grown up with, the cultural or learned. I love your presentation. I think it sort of helps us to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing that came to me in the talk, in putting it together, we are being co-creators. We may just not recognize, the job we're doing. And it gives you a new insight or a new sense of importance in doing what you're doing,
You call the Garden of Eden a myth, and I would use the word allegory rather than myth, because it seemed to me, and this is one problem that I keep on arguing with my atheist son, that so many of the things that he hates about the Bible, the people in Jonah's stomach and on like that, and he doesn't understand the use of allegory in the church's teachings. And I don't think the church has yet evolved in terms of showing those things as allegories, even though it accepts Teilhard's notion of evolution.
Yeah. But a good story will change me, my insight on things. I think just recognizing whether the story is true or not really doesn't make the story of the prodigal son. I love that story. It didn't happen, but how much we have learned from that story. So a story doesn't mean it's useless.
Right. Well, banning Teilhard's works had a lot to do with the church's belief in original sin.
Well, that's the problem.
Original sin being tied to the
Story of the creation, yeah.
But in fact, the same thing happened with Galileo.
Right.
Tying the evolution of the sun around the earth, or revolving around the earth, being against a predetermined theological view.
Right.
So it's a difficult thing to change the church's mind.
Well, obviously it's changed. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if this is distracting from your talk or not. I don't know. He mentioned original sin. That's interesting. I'd like to hear that expanded. I was going to ask you, you could just default to that, but how did Teilhard deal with the issue of how death entered the world?
That I can't tell you right offhand. Okay.
Okay, let's go to his
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, and that.
Tell me about original sin.
I'm sure.
So I'm not a Roman Catholic. Break down to me the context of where he's coming from.
In other words,
Ask him, he's right here.
No, I know. I'll tell you what Teilhard. at the fact that humans could not have been essentially present 13.5 billion years ago. Earth didn't form till about 4.5 billion years ago. And the creation's been ongoing for like 9 billion years.
Yeah.
And how could there have been intelligent humans, etc., walking the earth and knowing what God was telling them, and God telling them not to do this, and they did it anyway? That's where original sin came from.
What?
In other words, when God told them not to eat from the fruit from this particular tree, and then they ate it, they were intelligent human beings present at that time, but that couldn't have happened 13.5 billion years ago. There was no Earth then. So we'll do off. We can talk more after, but I don't want to get. I've got quite a bit to go through now. So, okay. Now, for a cause to flourish, it needs a vision and a firm foundation. It needs both. Dillard gives it the mindset that we are part to play in evolution, and Robin, whom I'm going to introduce you shortly, gives us another mindset. For the action part of the mindset of creation, I'm going to use the insights from Robin Wall Kimmerer in her book, Braiding Sweetgrass. Robin has a PhD in botany. As a botanist, she has been trained to ask questions of nature with the tools of science. As a member of the citizen Potawatomi Nation, she embraces the notion that plants and animals are our oldest teachers. Her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, on Amazon has sold over 20,000 copies. In reading Braiding Sweetgrass, it made me realize how disconnected I had become from nature. I grew up in the Finger Lakes region of New York State. I have fished the Finger Lakes, all 11 of them, and when I was growing up, also every year during the summer when I was growing up, I would spend a couple of months helping my grandparents on their farm. When I moved away from upstate New York and no longer fishing the Finger Lakes and spending summers on the farm, over time I realized that I had become disconnected from nature and the earth. When you become disconnected from something, you aren't as concerned as you should be as to what happens to it. Reading the book Braiding Sweetgrass exposed my loss of my connection with creation. Many people have the mindset from Genesis which says, "Fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." The word subdue may be opening up people that the earth can be plundered and exploited, and so might the word dominion. But the word dominion could mean to take responsibility, to take care of what God had created. If we don't take care of our earthly home and it becomes unfit for humanity, what becomes of us? Native Americans and indigenous people don't see themselves as having dominion over creation. They look at nature being alive. They have developed an intimate relationship with nature. Native Americans see themselves as human beings, but they see many other beings. Plants are plant beings. Animals, animal beings. Earth is Mother Earth. Sun is brother. Thunder and lightning is grandfather. And moon is grandmother. They are very much like Franciscans when you think about it. They never refer to plants, animals, or the earth as it, I-T, it, because they are alive. They are beings. Trees, plants, animals were given life by the Creator, just like human beings were given life by the same Creator. One of the practices of Native Americans for our mindset is the action which they call reciprocity. How to give back. How to give back for what you receive. They just don't take from creation, but when they do so respectfully. They reciprocate, they give back. There's a story that Robin shares about how when she was young, a child, etc. They were poor, they didn't have much money, etc. So she shares a story where for her father's birthday, one year or maybe many years she did, what she would do is she would go out and find wild strawberries. Now I don't know if any of you have tasted wild strawberries, but wild strawberries are about the size of a little blueberry. You know, they're not the big strawberries they're just a little blueberry. But boy, they have all the sweetness that you'd want in a big blueberry into that little blueberry. So she would go out and pick these blueberries, little strawberries, and it took her quite a while to get a collection that she could give to her father for his birthday. And he, would relish it and endeared what she had done for him. But what Robin would do after she selected the strawberries, these grow on vines and they crawl along the ground. What she would do is go to the end of the vine and clear out a path. Clear out a path so the vine could continue. And she'd go find this other vine to continue. What she was doing is a way of reciprocating for the fruit they gave her by helping the vine grow so that when she comes back next year, there would be more strawberries. What a beautiful way. Now we don't, deal directly with our food. So, we can't necessarily do that, but it's when you deal with your food like that, and that story, once I read that story, I knew I was hooked on that book. I had to read all the other stories. And there are a lot of powerful stories in that book. Another way they reciprocate with plants, this is a picture of sweetgrass. Sweetgrass is the crop that they use to make baskets, etc. Get money that way. And when they go out and find sweetgrass grows along streams and stuff like that. When they find a patch of it, they go in and they just take sections out. They don't go in and crop it all off. They go in and take a section out. And that way, the plant will continue to generate, and when they come back next year, there's going to be more sweetgrass. So by harvesting their crop like that, they're being respectful. And when after they harvest the crop of sweetgrass, they have a smoking pipe and blow smoke. It's like us Catholics using incense. They use smoke over the sweetgrass as a way of giving thanks to the sweetgrass for what the harvest that they had received. And they even did a study to see whether it would be best if they pulled the plant with its roots directly, at various portions, or whether it was better to be able to just cut it at the root and harvest it, and it turns out it didn't matter. So, but that's the concern, that's the respect that they had for the plant beings. And that's the respect, the reciprocity, the way the prayers were a sense of reciprocity, and they in that particular instance, and there's another story in Braiding Sweetgrass of what they do during a salmon run. Now, this was upper Midwest, I'm sorry, the far west, up in Washington, Oregon, when the salmon come up the streams. They knew when the salmon were coming. They would come a couple days before, and they would light a large bonfire near the entrance of the stream. The bonfire was there to welcome the brothers and sisters for coming back for another season. That was a welcoming that they would do. How respectful. And when the salmon start running up the stream, they didn't put the nets in. They let the salmon run for half a day to make sure that plenty of salmon got upstream and could spawn, so that next year there would be salmon. And after a half a day, they would then lower the nets, and the first salmon that they caught, they would make a special platter for it, like being guest of honor, okay? And they had a feast. They had a feast of salmon run, and the feast was to thank the salmon for coming back again this year. And that first salmon would be laid out on a special platter, at the table, and they would then feast. Then they would simply catch the salmon that they needed that filled the racks. Once they had their racks filled, the smoking racks filled, they stopped. They pulled the nets out, and they let the salmon run upstream. Certainly that would be more for spawning, etc., but they knew a lot of them would die up there. But what happens when the salmon die up there, then the animals come and take them and drag them to all over the place up there and eat portion, leave it, but it fertilized the area up there. See, that is respect for nature. And there's all kinds of stories like that. But it really it gave me a whole example of how we could give back. Now, the question, is there anything we could do to practice reciprocity? And, we all give God thanks when we sit down to a meal. We thank God for the meal that God has provided for us. But we ever think of giving honor to the plants, the animals that we may be eating? They gave their life for us. And in that sense, it's thank God, thank the plants, thank the animals that we're about to eat for giving their lives to sustain us. Now, Native Americans don't look at that as in a negative sense, that we're consuming animals. They look at the fact that plants, the purpose of the plant is to provide nurturing food for people. The purpose of the animal in many cases is to provide food for people. So when they're harvested and treated respect, they're essentially completed their mission in life, the plants or the animals. And because that was their purpose in life. It's not a negative thing, it's a positive thing when you think about it in that way. But, plants and animals are created for our nourishment. And, so we might think of that. It's kind of weird when I first tried it. It just seemed weird. But also, we can give, by being respectful, like not to waste food. When you waste food, yes, it causes air pollution, but it also is disrespectful of the plants and animals that we might be essentially tossing out. And so no way to look at things. And there's things we can do, I think, when we making sure we have cleaner air. You know, if we have cleaner air, it's cleaner for humans, et cetera, but it's also cleaner air for the environment, for the plants and the animals, et cetera. So, you know, a car with that burns cleaner air is much better. Is a way, I think, of being respectful for creation. And, you know, when we open our minds up thinking that way, an example that hit me, thinking how could, you know, was an example that when I was ordering something on Amazon, you know, like Amazon, you can get it next day and even sometimes the same day. But I had ordered several things, and Amazon put a little note that said that if you could wait and get everything in 3 days, it'll come in one package, there'll just be one driver bringing it, and you had to check a checkbox to do that. So there's, you know, you open your minds up, things start popping up when you start seeing things. So those are some ways I think we can be respectful of nature, and as a form of reciprocity that we have. Now, Native Americans are even humble enough to learn from creation. In Native ways of knowing, human beings are referred to as the younger brothers of creation. They say that humans have the least experience on how to live and thus the most to learn. We must look at our teachers among other beings for guidance. One such teacher is an old-growth forest. This is an example of an old-growth forest. It has trees, vines, moss, shrubs, and all kinds of plant life, all growing together. You know, it's a very diverse community, shall we say. And what scientists have discovered is that plants exchange elements with each other. A plant might need water, it'll get the water from another plant or a tree, etc. And the reason they can tell that, because they find the DNA from the other plant in this plant. So plants, when they're set up like this, are very healthy. It's a very healthy forest. And there was another experiment that somebody tried where they cleared out all the shrubbery. They left the maples, the oaks, the pines, etc., the real trees in there. Well, that forest did not do as well as it was doing before they cleared things out. So it's just, you know, experiment both ways. But what Robin said, you know, we learn from an old growth forest that diversity is good. Diversity is good for plant beings. Diversity is good for human beings. Robin shares many examples in her book of what we can learn from plants and animal beings. And I just want to share some reflections. For Native Americans have a great respect for maple trees. One of the reasons is, near the end of winter, the natives' food supplies had dwindled and the game was scarce. In other words, the animals, etc., was scarce. And it was then that maple trees provided nourishment to the people. Robin said that they had to trust that Mother Earth would find a way to feed them, even in the depths of winter. But she said, mothers are like that. At the start of the sap run, Native Americans would reciprocate with a ceremony of Thanksgiving. for what they were about to receive. The reason for the tree generating sap is because the tree buds need it to bloom. So the buds sent a signal to the roots to start producing the sap. Once the sap is produced, it is then sent up to the buds. Once the leaves bloom, the leaves produce their own food. And while the sap is running up the trunk, up to the buds, is when the tree is tapped for sap. The tree makes plenty of sap for both the buds and the hungry humans. You think, do trees have a consciousness to do this? One time during a sap run, Robin saw her 2 daughters being nursed by a maple tree. They placed their tongue under the drip spike and let the syrup drip onto their tongue. Robin said it was as close as they can come to being suckled by Mother Earth. She was moved to tears. Robin said a long time ago, her people learned to make sugar from the squirrels, who would climb the maple trees and in late winter and break off the small branches. They would then suckle the syrup coming up off the broken branch. So the squirrels taught the Native Americans about tapping. Now that may be a myth, but it's still a story. And when you understand a maple tree in that way, it gives you a greater respect for creation. All that is happening all the time without any human interaction, etc. The tree knows what to do. When Robin went to college to get her PhD in botany, she said her education was very reductionist, mechanistic, and strictly objective. Plants were reduced to objects. After graduation, she met a Navajo woman she will never forget, who did not have a day of university botany training in her life. She spoke for hours, and Robin held on to every word. One by one, name by name, she told of the plants in her valley, where each one lived, when it bloomed, who liked to be near, and all its relationships, who ate it, who lived in their nest with its fibers, what kind of medicine the plant offered. She also shared stories held by those plants, their origins, myths, how they got their names, and what they have to tell us. She spoke of beauty. Robin said it was the beginning of her reclaiming my other way of knowing. It was her way of really accepting her history as a Native American. A new, unique way that Robin experienced creation was when she dropped her youngest daughter off for college. She knew that she would be full of emotions after dropping her daughter off. So she had a kayak on the top of her car, and she knew of a lake on the way home. And after spending several hours kayaking, she said, "The earth is the first among good mothers. Gives us the gift we cannot provide for ourselves." I hadn't realized that when I came to the lake and said, "Feed me," but my empty heart was fed. I had a good mother. She gives me what I need without being asked. I wonder if she gets tired old Mother Earth, or if she is too fed by giving. Thanks, I whispered, for all of this. When Robin was a young child, Robin's mother taught her children a ritual of respect for the land. It was before the family paddled away from a camp. Her mother made her kids scour to be sure it was spotless. Also, they made sure to leave wood for the next person's fire, with tinder, kindling, carefully sheltered from rain by sheets of bark. And finally, one thing that really struck me too in reading Braiding Sweetgrass was their mindset, the Native American mindset about prayers. They find gratitude. Their prayers are prayers of gratitude. Robin said that prayers for her people are prayers of gratitude for what the Creator has given them all. They need to supply their lives. When they look upon the fields and the woods, etc., they thank God because everything is there that they need to sustain their lives. Now, if you put me out there, I'd be gone shortly. But they knew from their traditions, from their elders, etc., taught them how to use everything that God had provided them and sustained for them. And they had everything they needed. And their prayers are always prayers of gratitude. One example she uses is here where they gathered. She says, "Today we have gathered, and when we look upon the faces around us, we see the cycles of human life. We have been given the duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and all living things. So now let us bring our mind together as one, as we give greetings and thanks to each other as people. Now our minds are one." And they have prayers for water, the fish, the plants, medicine, herbs, trees, animals, birds of the air, the four winds, thunder and lightning, the moon, the stars, the teachers, and the Creator. All sets of prayers that they pray. I'm sure they must ask for prayers if they're in need, etc. But I'm always looking at prayers as petitions, but their prayers mostly are prayers of gratitude for what they have been given. We refer to our native brothers and sisters as indigenous people. Robin says that to be indigenous to a place means living as if your children's future mattered. Living as if your children's future mattered. To take care of the land as if our lives, both materially and spiritually, depended on it. Say it again. To be indigenous to a place means living as if your children's future mattered. To take care of the land as if our lives, both materially and spiritually, depended on it. Learning about Tillard and Robin's insights has really been a paradigm shift for me. Tillard is telling us in plain and simple that God has us to be co-creators in the ongoing evolution of the earth. When you care about the other, you will do what you can for their welfare. Robin is telling us that we need to follow the examples of indigenous people in caring for our earthly homes. The awakening of a wider ecological consciousness requires the acknowledgement and celebration of our reciprocal relationship with the rest of the living world. We are in a relationship with the rest of the living world. They are our brothers, our sisters, they are life the same way we are life. As I pondered how to finish the presentation, I come to realize that without plant beings, animal beings, Mother Earth, Brother Sun, Sister Water, Brother Wind, and Grandmother Moon, human beings would not be able to fulfill our roles as co-creators. We need them to be with us on our journey as co-creators. For us to live in harmony with the rest of the world is very important for the process of evolution to continue. And that's my presentation this morning. And I have a series of quotations from Tillard and Robin, and a couple of sheets that are very good to reflect on. I'll send them out via email. And I've also got a list. There's a PBS documentary, a 2-hour presentation by Tillard on the life of Tillard that is very good if you haven't seen it. So I'll send you a link for that also. So if there are no questions, that concludes. So, yeah. Yes, Jenny.
Yeah. Sometimes all of this stuff is very depressing, thinking about our current state. But I recently watched a program on PBS called Hope in the Water, and it was a talk about the Maine fishermen who feel like ecology, changing of the weather,
Right.
is moving fish into the who are like changing the whole.
It's changing the ecology of the area.
The
Yeah.
ecology there. And so local fishermen are working to get rid of some of the invasive fish that are eating the fish that grow there, and
Yeah.
moving further north, and they've got a whole very local, and some of them are indigenous,
Right.
a plan for trying to still have food.
Good. You know what I'd like you to do? Send me, you have a link for that?
Oh, it's just PBS, and it's Hope in the Water was the
Okay.
name of the series.
Okay.
And one of the takeaways from it is that fishermen are overfishing salmon and shrimp because everybody loves to eat it. So eat something else, like another fish. Mussels.
Mahi is supposed
Mussels
to
and
be
crabs or
sustainable.
something,
Yes.
But yeah,
Okay.
I think I can
Yeah, because
give you the name of it.
I'd like to be able to set up a site where we could put a lot of this, there's good news all over the place, but be able to put it in one place so anybody could go and look at it.
And the fact that it was good news. was-
That's right. We need that. That encourages us. We need those stories.
Well, in what sense would you say is a tree or a rock a person?
I'd say it's a person. I'm saying it's a living being. It's living.
A being.
A living.
So what is a being?
Well, because, we can get into that, but a rock, we look at a rock, it's just solid. But what about all these electrons and all the elements that are inside that rock? Are they just static?
No.
So, and they all seem to know what to do to beat the rock.
So you're saying, to use Tillard's words, it has a sort of consciousness?
I don't know.
I'll talk to you about that later, afterwards. I can speak to that a little bit, and we can have our conversation.
Yeah, Tracy, that's a good question. I like those questions. That's no problem. Yes, Ron?
In listening to your very good presentation about raising sweetgrass, like the people who live in Europe or Asia 5,000 or 10,000 years ago probably had the same kind of experience with nature back then.
Yeah.
And they had to be in, like a really,
In tune with it.
yeah, relationship with nature.
Yeah.
They wouldn't survive. We've lost that now.
With that-
Like in the middle of winter, we just go to the supermarket. We don't understand, like, we have to take care of the nature that's providing us this stuff.
Yeah, we're
The
disconnected.
care of creation ministry here, does an excellent job of pointing that out. But then, as we've learned more about nature, we should know more about what's going on. And some scientists do. When they go back and they look at how the universe formed and how everything came together in a certain way, especially the believing scientists who believe in a creator, they look at this and say, how did this happen this way? There's a plan here. And when you look at even things like inside our bodies, the cells in our bodies are so unbelievable. They're astonishing in their complexity. How did they get to be that way? It gives you that sense of awe
Yeah,
and the gratitude. It gives you the same kind of awe and gratitude as the Indians.
yeah,
When you see that wonder, when you look around you and see this magnificence.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Anybody else?
I just
Yeah.
want to make a plug for something.
Plug it.
St. Francis is a participant in the One Wake program, and we have a petition here to support affordable housing in Wake County. And if you haven't had a chance to sign the petition, I invite you to do so. And there's information about our adaptive-to-see plan. I think our parish is about to embark upon that effort. And there's a wonderful little pamphlet talking about, oh my goodness, our common home. So I'd offer that you come pick one up on your way out. Just wanted to-
Okay, very good. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Irvin. Yes.
I'd like to mention another book that I have read, which was very impressive, similar in some ways to Robin's, called The Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard. If you haven't seen that or read it, it's very similar in how trees talk to each other, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
Yeah. They even can tell in a forest what the mother tree is and what her children are. With the DNA. So we're learning, about nature, things we just didn't expect.
You learn about what I think call about allelopathy, how some trees and plants can keep other plants at bay, but then they keep other plants nourished and big. So there's a whole balance out there
Yeah,
throughout nature.
yeah,
Mycorrhizae, the extending of roots, and agro-ecosystems.
yeah,
It's just amazing thing to work.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Jay?
Thank you, Steve, for your sharing today. I want to go back to your opening prayer from Daniel, where everything in creation is asked to bless the Lord.
Mhm.
And I think there's often a tension between science and history and evolution. And I would put faith into evolution. And I think Teilhard, along with Elia Delio and many Native Americans, indigenous peoples, make that bridge fairly well. But if we're asking every part of creation to bless the Lord, for me, there's got to be some sort of consciousness for everything in creation. There's got to be some sort of being. There's got to be some sort of awareness of being to bless God. And I would go back to St. Francis's Canticle of Creation, where he gives personhood to everything. including Sister Death, where he did not see death as the enemy, but he evolved into a way of being that everything created by God is part of the plan, including death. And as his brothers are running around losing their minds, as he's about to die, he sort of looks at them and says, guys, relax. This is how God planned it. If this is how God planned it, let it be. Let it happen. It's all meant for good. It's all meant for our transformation. And for us to deny that, I think creates tremendous frustration.
Yeah. Very good, Jay. Yes?
Sorry,
I just wanted to mention that if any of you get Ilio's newsletters that come out monthly, the Center for Christogenesis, this week is right on this subject. It's the name of her topic is Returning Religion to Evolution. And Paul, I haven't read the whole thing, but Paul is like on fire with it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Father.
To the question brought by Rob about, our trees and plants, what
Is it a rock or a tree or a person?
Right, well, so not a person, they're not sentient beings, but they do communicate. In fact, I think you mentioned a book, I guess, and I've read a similar book, one called Trees. But there's also a documentary, and I was just looking it up here. I think it's called Fantastic Fungi, and it talks about all of the interrelationship and communication underground between trees and fungi. So.
Exactly. That's the way the old forest communicates.
Right.
Yep.
No, I was going to say, staying with the book theme on trees, another excellent book I read last year was The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben. And it also talks about how they communicate, when one's threatened, how they actually warn each other, and when one's harmed, how they work to continue to survive. It's very, very fascinating.
Yep.
I think all beings, and I do think plants, animals, they're not all persons as we define person, but they're all beings, they're all living. And I remember being taught, well, animals can't think. That's baloney, and it took me years, but I was trained that way. A lot of us probably said the same thing, that animals can't think. It's one. But even rocks, and you were talking about the action of the particles in it. Well, when I finished my bachelor's degree in chemistry, there weren't that many particles. But there's a heck of a lot more particles that are even smaller than the ones I learned then. But they all interact together in a way that works together.
Yeah.
Do they actually think? By chance, they just very well may. It's just that things we can't see or understand yet.
We don't understand.
Whoever's had a dog knows they think.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If we're all set, why don't we just stand and say a prayer? We'll give you, you'll get you after prayer. Okay. Dear Lord, we just thank you for being present in our midst, Lord. Help us to carry those thoughts that we need to carry, Lord, to do the direction you want us to go, Lord. Thank you for the many blessings in our lives. Thank you for the opportunity to be in a place that is open to allow presentations such as this. And thank you for all who have come. And we ask all this in your name, Father. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen.